Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation on implementing digital learning at scale. My name is Anand Chawla and I will try my best to make sure the time you spend today on presentation is worthwhile. Before I start, a little information about myself. I'm working as Director IT for our education group in India with 135 schools in India. My qualifications include I have completed data analysis from London School of Economics. I'm an Oracle certified professional and a Sun certified Java programmer. I'm also a Google certified educator, and have completed level 1, level 2, and trainer skills assessment uh, test by Google also. A little info about my organization. I'm associated with Bodhar Education Network for more than 2 decades now. And the organization was founded in the year 1927. It's spread across 8 states in India. We manage 135 schools, 360 preschools, 155,000 students, and close to 8,000 plus staff members work with us today. The experience what I have gained in the organization, wherein we scale our learning solutions to schools which are spread across diverse locations, is an experience which I would like to share with all of you today. Now, when we all talk about remote learning, we've been all remote learning or remote working from home for the past 4 or 5 months today. And if anyone asks me that what is the prerequisite for me, I feel the first and the foremost one is actually a quiet place to study, access to a quiet place. It's a luxury, as I said today, because you've got 3 4 members work in the house, and it becomes quite a challenge for everyone to have their own room to sit and study or work today. Now, apart from a quiet place, obviously you have devices which are needed. That's the computer, laptop, and the internet connectivity. And to top it off, if you really want to have a good remote learning uh, to be done in the school, the teachers have to be trained and also the parents and students. In fact, the teachers have surprised themselves today by, picking up things on their own because the need of the hour was that today. So we will go through each of this parameter one by one. Now, I looked up on internet and the source of the survey is OECD site. Now, this survey, what it does is it gives you kind of an outlook on what is the percentage of people having access to, for example, a quiet place to study. So when you see countries like Philippines, Indonesia, and even India, they fall in range of 50-60% of students who have a quiet place access. But countries like USA and Netherlands go as high as 90-95%. And it is a big challenge for children and parents today, having an access to the place. And I feel, as I mentioned earlier, a very important requisite or requirement for remote learning. The second aspect is study at home does require a device, and even having a 1:1 or a 1:2 ratio at home today is a challenge because on an average you have 3 to 4 members in the house. It becomes quite challenging for everyone to have a device, and there's a huge gap across socio-economic groups. So when you look at the survey, which this is dated about 2019, I think the survey is dated. Uh, So countries like Indonesia, Philippines have 50% of students having access to computer for schoolwork. Whereas when you have USA, Switzerland, again range of 75 to 95%, there's a huge gap if you look at that today. And the third aspect, what you have here is as the online learning requires internet and connectivity is a huge challenge. There's a big gap again across the socio-economic groups, but this is one of the external factors because you are dependent on the infrastructure of the country, city, or state for having a good internet connectivity. And We look at countries like Indonesia, Philippines, range of 30-35% for students with internet, but US is Switzerland again in the range of 80-90%. So all the growing countries, all the countries with you know large gaps in socioeconomic groups will find a challenge to implement remote learning. And throughout the presentation, my effort would be to explain you the alternatives also. Now, looking at the final aspect here, the teacher-parent training. Now, if you ask me today, I feel the bigger challenge for schools is today is they lack IT infrastructure. Now, when I say IT infrastructure, is I would like to also include the IT support staff for academic as well as non-academic support. So when you say you need an instructional teacher to train the other teachers in implementing technology across, you know, these subjects, and you need an IT support engineer to support all the teachers. And if you ask me, I feel the best way to do this is CPD sessions, that is continued professional development sessions for teachers. But make sure the training what they get is actually put in practice rather than just the training done and there is no other objective after the training. So it's very important to link your objective with the training as to if you are wanting to have a training, how would you try and utilize that in the teaching platform basically. And it's very important that there are IT sessions for parents for preparing them to how the technology can be used because in lower grades parents are the ones who would be actually explaining their children and to some extent they would require some basic training too. So how do you plan remote learning with all these you know you can say uh, I, I think with this shortcomings I can say because the four parameters what I mentioned there. So now what I call this is as a survey, a discovery survey basically. So you're basically doing a survey to identify at what kind of technology the students have at home. It's a very important aspect. I call it as two C's, computer and connectivity. Because if you're planning to do remote learning, one of the most important things to do is you need to have this. Now, whether the remote learning is limited to the COVID situation or the remote learning is after the situation improving, the plan of remote learning is indirectly proportional to what the students and teachers have access to at home because they would be doing all this from their houses, from their homes. So once the survey is done, the survey defines the roadmap for remote learning. Now, you all must have come across terminologies like synchronous and asynchronous learning. So we'll go through this in the presentation because, as I said, when you do the survey, you will get an idea where the structure of students' technology stands. Today. You also will have some alternatives for students. We need to have some alternatives for students with no devices and connectivity. We'll see that again throughout the solution. And the most important aspect here is how do you scale a remote learning solution? So just a quick a brief on what is a synchronous learning. It's basically live teaching or real-time teaching wherein, for example, synchronous learning happens in the classroom where a teacher is teaching all the students and all the students are grasping the information from the teacher. So that's happening live. The feedbacks are live. And in today's environment, synchronous is happening online, wherein everybody's connected live, through their webcams and audio. The challenge what synchronous learning uh, provides you is you need to have laptop and internet, and you have to strictly follow the online timetable because you have to log in and log out at the time when the teacher starts and finishes the lesson. It's very important everybody's on the same ecosystem. We'll look in that aspect a little later. And safety online is today a big issue. So these all parameters have to be, understood pretty well before you actually decide what kind of learning terminology you are more comfortable in. Now, when you look at asynchronous learning, uh, it's it's asynchronous means it's not happening in real time. So it may be in a form of a recorded video, audio, PowerPoint, documents, images. Now, this works out well for certain students because certain students need to keep reminding themselves, they need to keep going back and referring the lesson again and again. They like, studying that way. It also at their own convenient time. So the advantage of synchronous learning gives you is you don't have to have the device at that particular point of time. You can have it distributed amongst the children in the house. But again, if you look at the other side of it, it lacks instant feedback, personal interaction, and when you say it's like the feedbacks are deferred. So if they want to ask teacher and the teacher responds back, there might be some gap in between that. So, but when I was surfing the net, there's always an argument that which one is a better way of learning, whether it's synchronous versus asynchronous. If you ask me today, I feel blended combination of both works wonderfully well because then you're catering to both kinds of students. And a beautiful infographics here, which I got from the internet, was it gives you quick, kind of information on the advantage and disadvantage of synchronous and asynchronous. So you could actually pick up the good among the both of them and just blend it up. So have a kind of a blended learning. So as they mentioned that synchronous learning is delivered at a specific place, asynchronous is at the time convenient to you. Synchronous learning requires the benefit is the biggest benefit I feel is the immediate feedback and interaction with the teacher. But the shy students, the students who don't open up in the classroom, asynchronous learning works very well for them because they are self-paced, it's choice-based for them, so they can rewind forward, pause, go back, to uh, the information. And one of the disadvantages of synchronous learning in again growing countries is it can be inflexible because if your internet is down at that particular time, you missed the lecture. And the advantage of synchronous gives you in that is you have it recorded, but you need to have a self-discipline in making sure that you're referring to the lesson, recorded lesson. And to implement synchronous, as I mentioned, if you want to do a blend of both, you would try a video conference platform uh, and combine it with a synchronous learning in form of discussion boards or online learning management system, what the school can invest in so that there is a continuous back and forth between communication between students and teachers. So that's what I would do, a blend of it. Now, to achieve that, it's very important that the school is comes under a common ecosystem, like an umbrella which is common. And then what I would do is in the scenario is all the teachers to have school email IDs. So it's like the email IDs start with your name but end with the school domain, and the same with the students to have school email IDs. Now, what this lets you do is you have options like Google Suite and Microsoft uh, platforms today, which gives you free access to education for creating email IDs, as well as having some kind of a video conference platform or Google Classroom platform or Microsoft Teams platform to interact with each other. You also have an option of Zoom, which is a paid platform but does give you a 40-minute free session. And I would combine it with a learning management system so that uh, any student who is missing a live lecture, I would just record and put it up in the learning management system so that it can be referred to anytime. Now, coming to scaling the solution. Now, scaling the solution, Again, when I went through online, there was a beautiful infographics here, which is called as 4Ds. So, which is discover, that is where exactly the school is today. Dream is what you are aiming for. Design is how do you design your solution based on your discovery and dream, and deliver it at the end. So, the ultimate objective here is to improve the student outcome. So, that's your goal. So what I would choose in this scenario, I've listed down the stages here, is how do you scale a remote learning solution? Is the survey first to identify the technology, what the school possesses, also the parents possess at home. Involve stakeholders, parents and teachers, so that you also have like a consensus that, okay, based on the technology and parameters, this is what our next step would be. Shortlist the ecosystem platform. Very important that you have a good platform planned and everybody comes under the same umbrella. Train the teachers and students. Very important. Next step. Plan the pilot. Now, when I say plan the pilot, is we would, if you wish to do something, then implement it in a small environment like a grade one or grade two. So one or two grades, I mean. So you keep it as a test phase for a couple of months to identify the learning outcomes as well as the challenges you face. And once you are able to cater to the challenges, you look at expanding it across the entire school. Now, expansion in your case would be grade 1 to 10 grades, or in some schools it'll be one school to 10 schools, or in our case it was 135 schools. So that's the plan you need to have, and culminate it with monitoring and supporting. It's very important to monitor, assess as to what you have started with the intention, whether you are actually meeting that goal or not. And remember, the most important objective is the learning objective is improving student outcomes. So that's learning outcomes. So that's very important. So now, when you look at uh, this figure, it says 40% of countries, a few countries in the world have just 40% internet connectivity. Now, when you look at this challenge, how do you actually do remote learning at home, right, or in the school and home? Now, what I was doing is when I've been to so many webinars, and whenever there are a lot of people who ask me the same question, that what if I don't have a dedicated device, or I don't have an internet connection which is very strong? So I listed down few options for people who had these issues. Now, one of the schools I have seen in India, a lot of schools using WhatsApp groups. So what the teachers do is they create grade-wise, subject-wise WhatsApp groups. So if you've got 6 subjects, you have 6 WhatsApp groups. And each teacher is managing the group by posting the information, where she clicks the picture and posts on the group. And a lot of parents have WhatsApp today. It can be WhatsApp, it can be WeChat, it can be any mess or Telegram, it can be any you know communication app which you use it very common. Again, this would be defined by the survey, which you can find out which what parents are using more often. And you start a one-way platform wherein the admin only posting uh, the options, and then gradually start the two-way communication, so that at least for students who are not having technology devices dedicatedly, at least something could be done for those students. The second wonderful option I have seen with some of my schools are using is podcasting. Now, podcasting is nothing but a recorded audio instead of a recorded video, because a lot of schools are complaining about the screen time, and there are some schools who are doing online teaching for 3 hours, 4 hours. So there were suggestions from certain teachers and head of schools that podcasting can help you to teach languages, a little bit math, a little bit geography, uh, you know, any subject basically which requires a little verbal communication, and also it also helps you improve your listening skills. It's one of the most very important aspect today. So I suggest you can play around with a site called as anchor.fm. what Anchor.fm does is it's a site by Spotify. So it lets you create your own podcasting channel. So you could have subject-wise channels there. And the best part is, again, only thing the student or parent needs is just a mobile phone, and just you could just play it like a song and just hear the podcast. The third option, what I've seen a lot of schools in India and Africa also, is the schools are couriering or posting sets of printouts to the parents for self-learning. Also, sometimes the parents go to the school and pick up the weekly bunch of Xeroxes, which have the worksheet assignments, documents. It works out really well for certain students because the students need to keep practicing to write. So to make sure that they don't, to make sure that they implement that correctly, small assessments could be given as based as form in form of printouts and Xeroxes. And the fourth option, which I've seen, is parent mentors. So wherein a group of 4 5 parents are combined with a parent who's a little bit better off in using technology, and that group works together, so that, and communicates with each other and gives information to each other and helps each other. So this group can be based on the distances of the parents living nearby, or it can be based on technology, kind of updates each parent has at his end. So these are the 4 alternatives I could think of, which I have seen works out in an environment where you don't have a lot of options when the connectivity is poor or the device shortage is there. And I'd like to end with a beautiful quote, which I love, is that we need to bring learning to people instead of people to learning. This is a quote by Eliot Massey, and I just love the way it's been framed. So if you read it a couple of times, you'll actually understand what this tries to explain you. So if you ask me today, I would make a platform with blended learning and let the learner choose that what form of learning he would like to do, because everybody is different, every person is different today, and the more options you give in that scenario, in learning scenario, the better it is for the student community. I'd like to thank you for your patience, for watching. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's bit.ly/capital A capital YouTube, or just log on YouTube and type Anand Chawla. I do a lot of teacher training with free tutorials online. And I've got a lot of playlists on coding, Google certified, some Google certifications for teachers. Feel free to log on and have a look at it. Thank you so much for watching.